coming up on the October 27th edition of Sports Extra.
We turned over every rock, we asked every tough question, and now we have the answers.
The Wainstein report is a secret no more. The depth of deception was massive. We take a look back at the scheme that started it all.
Who knew about it? Was there a direct tie to the athletics department? And why so many student athletes?
And with a renewed investigation by the NCAA, what will happen to Carolina athletics? We take a look at possible punishments. All that and more. Sports Extra starts
right now.
From the University of North Carolina School of Journalism and Mass Communication, covering the full range of Tar Heel athletics, this is Sports Extra.
A big week in sports on the field? Sure, but off the field? The findings from the Wainstein report will haunt Carolina for a very long time. Welcome to Sports Extra. I'm Luis Fernandez.
And I'm Susanna Black. We'll have all of it here for you today, as well as in-depth analysis as to what it means for the university and the athletics department. But first, let's go over some of the basic components of the report to make sure we're all up to speed. Former federal prosecutor Kenneth Wainstein led an independent review of past academic irregularities in the former Department of African and Afro-American Studies. The results of the 8-month investigation were released to the public at a press conference last Wednesday. Wainstein was present, as well as UNC System President Tom Ross, Chancellor Carol Folt, and Athletics Director Bubba Cunningham. Wainstein concluded that Administrative Assistant Deborah Crowder and Department Chair Julius Niangoro led paper classes. Students rarely, if ever, met and often received high grades. The classes spanned from 1993 to 2011. Joining us now from South Building is a reporter from our sister show, Carolina Week, Elizabeth Tu. Elizabeth, we understand the basics, but there's much more to it than that.
So much more, Susanna. We also need to look into the fallout on the sports side of things, as there's no doubt of the direct impact the investigation has had in the athletics department.
During the 18-year period of paper classes, 3,100 students enrolled, with student athletes accounting for 47.6% of them. The report shows advisors funneled student athletes into these classes to keep them eligible to play. Former federal prosecutor Kenneth Wainstein said knowledge about these classes wasn't widespread.
There's knowledge and there's knowledge. There are a lot of people on campus who knew that these were easy classes. A lot of people who knew that they were and then some number who knew that they were designated as lecture classes but taught as independent studies. But it was a smaller, much smaller group who knew that there really wasn't even a professor involved and that Deborah Crowder was doing the grading.
As for the football staff, Butch Davis said he knew the classes were easy, but didn't know there wasn't any faculty involvement. The report shows football player enrollment in these classes spiked in 2008 after Crowder decided to retire. As for the basketball staff,
we then went, obviously, to Joe Holliday and to Roy Williams. Both of them said the same thing, that they didn't know anything about the fact that there was no faculty member involved, or that Deborah Crowder was managing these classes and taking the place of a faculty member.
It was Crowder who assigned grades to the final papers, and Wainstein's team found significant levels of plagiarism on those athletes handed in. Chancellor Carol Folt said the university terminated or disciplined 9 people, but declined to release names citing confidentiality. But Wainstein did name those who refused to cooperate. Among them, academic counselor Octavius Barnes, Associate Dean Carolyn Cannon, also a men's basketball advisor, football director Cynthia Reynolds, and interim head football coach Everett Withers.
Now, former women's basketball counselor Jan Boxell, who was also the former chair of the faculty council and head for the Parr Center for Ethics, is cited in the report as having firsthand knowledge of the academic fraud. Now, several journalists have reached out to Boxell unsuccessfully for a comment, and her name has since been removed from the website of the Parr Center for Ethics.
Those findings are very sobering. Elizabeth Tu, live at South Building. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Now that we understand how the report ties into athletics, let's dive deeper into the numbers and find out what they mean. Carolina Week reporter Jordan Nash joins us now live in studio. Jordan, let's go ahead and get started.
Well, Lewis, from 1993 to 2011, an 18-year period, UNC offered 2 main types of irregular classes. Independent studies, where the only assignment was to turn in a paper at the end of the class, and lecture paper classes, where students were supposed to meet for class and then write a paper, but never actually had to go to class. Wainstein said in his report that it's impossible to know how many independent studies enrollments there were because those records were incomplete. We looked at the numbers for lecture paper classes. Like Elizabeth said, 47.4% of the enrollments were from student athletes, a total of 1,852 student athlete enrollments. And again, that number doesn't include the first type of bogus classes. Of these student athlete enrollments, more than half were football players, 18.3% basketball players, and 30.6% were athletes from other sports. Let's start by looking at football. 944 enrollments from football players in the bogus lecture paper classes. While these irregular classes were offered, the UNC football team went to 12 bowl games and won 6. Counselors steered athletes to these classes so they could remain eligible to play.
Now, Jordan, what about the other revenue sport, men's basketball?
There were 226 enrollments from men's basketball players in the paper classes. During the 18-year period, the men's basketball team won 3 NCAA championships in 1993, in 2005, and in 2009. During the 2005 championship season, 10 of the 15 players were AFAM majors.
Wow, that's a large number of the team. What about the other sports?
The bogus classes seem to have hit most sports at UNC. In women's basketball, 114 enrollments in the classes. In other sports, 568. According to a report, the athletes in other Olympic sports didn't take the classes to keep their eligibility. They took them simply to reduce the workload.
All right, Jordan, now the big question is, how did these classes affect student grades?
Well, Lewis, for 329 students, both athletes and non-athletes who took paper classes, the inflated grades they received pushed their GPA above the magic 2.0. This means the classes ensured that the athletes would remain academically eligible and that non-athletes would not go on academic probation. And for 81 of those students, the boost the paper classes gave them was the difference between graduating or not.
Wow, that's a very tough pill to swallow there. Now the question that's on everyone's mind is, what comes next for UNC Athletics program? I know Athletics Director Bubba Cunningham said earlier that UNC has been working with the NCAA since June, cooperating with a new investigation, but what will that investigation yield? Jordan, what specific NCAA rules has UNC broken?
Well, Lewis, the head of the Drake Group that defends academic integrity in colleges says this is by far the biggest academic scandal in NCAA history. It's not so much as if UNC will be punished, but when and to what extent. The NCAA's violation structure has 4 levels. It's looking like UNC will fall under level 1, the main issues being academic fraud and individual unethical conduct. If the NCAA rules that Carolina had a lack of institutional control, instead of just failing to monitor the system, things could go from bad to worse. As for the actual punishment, it's honestly up in the air. Maybe the NCAA uses Carolina as an example and throws the book at the heels. Maybe it goes easy on UNC for being so cooperative. Lewis, it really could take quite a while before we know exactly what the NCAA will do.
Well, until then, Jordan, everyone in Carolina Blue will be nervously waiting. Carolina reporter Jordan Nash live in the studio. Thanks, Jordan.
The list of schools to face NCAA punishment is long. Let's go ahead and look at some offenders guilty of things similar to what happened in Chapel Hill and what their punishments were. In 2009, the NCAA retroactively ruled Memphis star point guard Derrick Rose ineligible. He had someone else take his SAT for him. The Tigers vacated all wins from the 2007-2008 season when they won 38 games and made it to the championship game. Then there's the Fab Five at Michigan. A booster was paying the players to launder money for an illegal gambling operation. Michigan self-imposed its punishments, vacating wins covering multiple years, firing a coach, returning money, and serving a 2-year probation. The harshest punishment the NCAA can dole out is the death penalty. It's happened only once to a Division I school, Southern Methodist University. After years of lesser punishments for continuing infractions, the organization canceled SMU's 1987 and 88 football seasons. The SMU football program has never been the same. Chances are Carolina does not receive the death penalty, but academic fraud on this large a scale has no precedent.
And Chancellor Carol Folt blamed the actions of a very few and the inactions of a much larger group for the problems uncovered in the Wainstein report. Several coaches have publicly said they knew the classes were easy, what some have called GPA boosters.
That's right. And many national writers and analysts have said if coaches didn't know what was going on, it was because they didn't want to know. The NCAA typically asks two questions. What did the coach know, and what should the coach have known? The Wainstein report has been in the news since its release. Everyone has been talking about it, from Fox and ESPN to Saturday Night Live. Let's take a look at some reactions on Twitter. Tim Chadrick tweets, Crowder should be banned from UNC for life. They are called student athletes for a reason. Hashtag Wainstein report. Gladiator Stacy tweets, it doesn't matter what the report says. I am forever a Tar Heel. Hashtag Wainstein report. And finally, former academic advisor and whistleblower Mary Willingham tweets, really? A paper class system for eligibility? No way. Remember, Willingham claimed that many athletes were reading at or below an 8th grade level at UNC.
So we've seen the reactions of people on social media, so we decided to send our Brett Thompson to the pit to gauge the reactions of the student body.
I mean, this is something that I think we've heard about for a while, since the accusations came around and initial reports and investigations. But it still was shocking to find out all the the actual data of everything.
This place is known for incredible academics, so the fact that they're going to let that fall anywhere below subpar is kind of shocking to me.
I can't even explain. It was just kind of a sense of disappointment and slight embarrassment.
The university has been called out on it. I don't feel like they'll continue that kind of behavior anymore. So I definitely think that we've got a future of higher academic integrity in front of us.
This is something that I see as necessary, that the university needed to do, and I realize that there's going to be a lot of public scrutiny with that, but I'm proud of the university for stepping up and placing themselves in that situation.
The hope is that the reforms that come from the report will make Carolina a national leader in how things should be done. Even with the aftermath of the investigation, the show must go on, and many current Carolina athletes have done nothing wrong.
Next on Sports Extra, Carolina football's last second win and a fast start from basketball.
Connect with us online by liking the Sports Extra Facebook page and following us on Twitter @SportsExtra_UNC.
Staring contest. You still got it. I know. Come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Now, it's tough to move on from the Wainstein investigation, but the games continue, giving the UNC community a distraction. And that's the kind of beauty of sports. During the football game on Saturday, you didn't really have much else to think about. It was a tight, exciting battle, and the Heels pulled off their second straight win. Things didn't look good at the start of the game. Virginia took a 14-point lead after this 2-yard run by running back Kevin Parks. So now, who is going to lead Carolina back into the game? Wait, is that a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Super Queese. A 52-yard touchdown run by quarterback Marquise Williams. Dang, he's fast. Let's take a look at this play. He reads the defensive end right here on the read option, sees him follow TJ Logan, and takes off. Finding the seam, and he's gone. Let's hop to the fourth quarter. Williams gets sacked, and his helmet comes off. NCAA rules say Williams has to come out for a play. 3rd and 15. 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Mitch Trubisky delivers a strike to TJ Thorpe. No warm-up throws, nothing. Wow. Carolina would hold on to win 28-27. Carolina's offense wasn't at its best against a tough Cavalier defense, but benefited from big plays throughout the game. Exhibit A, wide receiver Mac Hollins. Hollins had 2 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. The first one tied the game in the first quarter. Hollins attacks the ball at its highest point. That's receiving 101 right there. Makes a couple players miss, walks in the end zone, no big deal. His second touchdown, well, it was a little bit easier. Hollins runs a go route out of this bunch formation on the right, makes a move and just zooms past the defender. He's fast too. Carolina has a lot of players like that. Throw in the Williams TD run, and 3 of the 4 touchdowns for the offense were longer than 50 yards.
Quick strike ability has always been key in head coach Larry Fedora's offense, and Saturday's game was a great example. That takes us to this week's hidden stat. The Carolina offense is averaging less than 2 minutes per touchdown drive, about 112 seconds to be exact, and that's pretty fast. In the 37 touchdown drives the offense has this year, 12 have taken less than a minute. Sometimes it's because of great field position, sometimes it's because of great plays. Remember, Carolina currently ranks 20th in the nation in scoring offense. UNC scores about 37 points per game. And just like Carolina football is 4-4, 2-2 in the Coastal Division. That's good enough to put the Heels 3rd in the standings. Wait, what? Yep, that's right. Even after that egregious 4-game losing streak, Carolina controls its own destiny in the Coastal Division. 4 teams are sitting at 2-2. UNC already beat Georgia Tech and UVA, and with 3 more games against Coastal teams at Miami, home against Pitt, and at Duke, Carolina has an outside shot at going to the ACC championship game representing the Coastal. The Tar Heels began the first half of a 2-game road swing with their victory at Virginia, and business owners on Franklin Street likely can't wait for them to return to Kenan Stadium. Our Brett Thompson has more.
Kenan Stadium, home of Tar Heel football, and the Dean Smith Center, home of Carolina basketball, combined to hold 84,730 raucous fans at capacity. These fans come from across the country to cheer for their team and along the way give their business to the stores that line Franklin Street.
The game days are great for the economy, especially Chapel Hill and for local businesses on Franklin Street. Brings in a ton of revenue. It's great atmosphere. Really helps out the area, I think, a lot.
How much do these game days bring in? The number might come as a shock.
We have done studies before, and on average, a football game in Chapel Hill brings about $6 million of economic impact to all of Orange County.
A sizable portion of this revenue comes from merchandise sales, which can lead to heavy store traffic before a game.
We would have probably at least 20 to 50 people at one time in the store, especially the 2 or 3 hours before kickoff when people are really coming into town and crowding the street and walking around and soaking up the atmosphere. We get a lot of walk-in traffic on game days.
This mass of shoppers requires store owners to prepare differently.
A weekday, I have an assistant manager here from 12 to 5, and then I have a retail associate that comes in from 4 to 9 p.m. to close up the shop. Game days, we would have at least 5 people here.
With the recent success of football and basketball season upon us, Franklin Street customers are getting more bang for their buck. From Chapel Hill, I'm Brett Thompson reporting.
Franklin Street shops can expect to see plenty of the Tar Heel faithful for the next home game. Carolina will host Pitt on November 15th for homecoming.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. No, I'm not talking about Christmas. Basketball season has begun with the Heels cruising past Fayetteville State 111-58 in Friday's exhibition game. Freshman Justin Jackson led the team scoring 18 points, but we'll get to him later. Fellow freshman Theo Penson put up 15, including this, wait for it, nice putback dunk slam. Joel Berry rounded out the freshman trio with a solid 12 points. And then there's Isaiah Hicks, who went 6 for 6 shooting. Now, I mentioned it earlier, let's focus on the star of the game, true freshman Justin Jackson. He dished the rock with passes, like it's coming up in a little bit, to Isaiah Hicks and the overhead to junior swingman J.P. Tokoto. Here it is. Now, Jackson can clearly go hard in the paint, as they say, and shows off his range as well. His performance leads to high hopes for the upcoming season.
After the game, Coach Roy Williams weighed in about the Wainstein report.
I'll always be sad about the
the image that we have right now around the country. We've had one of the greatest images we can possibly have, and we're going to work as hard as we can possibly work to have that image be back to where it was. And I'm very proud to be part of that.
Williams said he had no opinion about the possibility of championship banners in the Smith Center coming down because of the report. UNC women's lacrosse won a national title in 2013.
Pretty impressive, but this Carolina lacrosse team has won 2 titles since 2012. That story next on Sports Extra.
If you store your guns properly, I'll feel safer when I'm playing outside.
Safer when walking home.
I won't have to tell so many family members. I'm sorry.
I won't hear as many scary stories.
And I won't have to tell my kids. This isn't a drill.
Please.
Please, do it for us.
Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always, lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
The women's soccer team finished out its final regular season home games in style against 2 teams from the Sunshine State, starting with number 2 Florida State on Thursday. The Seminoles struck first on this brilliant header near the end of the first half. Carolina scored the equalizer in the second half when Annie Kingman took one dribble and finished with this left-footed shot. The game went into double overtime, but neither team could find the back of the net again. The Heels had more offensive success against Miami on Sunday. The Tar Heels netted 3 goals, including this one by Emily Bruder for her 5th goal in 4 games. Carolina won the game 3-0 to remain undefeated in the ACC. The field hockey team had a killer weekend with matches against Wake Forest and Pacific. The Tar Heels were tied at 12 minutes into the second half against the number 11 Demon Deacons when senior Lauren Sheely bounced the ball into the cage for her 5th game-winning goal of the season. The Heels won 3-1. Saturday was senior day for the Heels, and junior Emma Bozek had 3 goals, including this one on a fast break from Nina Notman to make the score 5-0. The team scored 7 goals in the shutout against Pacific and will travel to Virginia on Sunday to take on Old Dominion in the regular season finale.
This year marks the 20th anniversary of women's lacrosse at UNC, and the team welcomes some former players to celebrate the milestone. The festivities opened Saturday morning when the current Tar Heel team took on former players in a scrimmage at Finley Field. The teams had a lighthearted match featuring goals from newer faces and heralded alumni. Family and friends attended the event, which preceded an awards banquet later that night. The present team bested the alums, which, bodes well for the future of Tar Heel lacrosse. UNC, some call it the University of National Champions. Caleb Waters tells us one club team is helping the university live up to that name.
The women's lacrosse program at UNC is a national powerhouse. That certainly applies to the varsity squad, and the club women's lacrosse team is also making a name for itself. Senior Katie Rodriguez says the team is perfect.
They're my best friends. This is the first thing I got involved with when I came to Carolina. This is something that I found a place in common where I could play lacrosse and play with a bunch of people who love playing as well, but also valued academics. And so basically this is the perfect organization for me.
The club won the 2012 and 2014 WCLA Division II National Championship, which, according to Vice President Claire Scott, is due to the team's unity.
We're so bonded. We really know how to work as a team. We only have 2 practices a week that are an hour and a half, basically on a field, and then we do workouts, and we are just so good at bonding together and really getting to know each other, and it really shows on the field.
I think coming out here without any outside incentive means that we all are here for the love of the game.
After winning the 2014 Division II championship, the club moved up to Division I. Despite the stiffer competition, hopes for the team are still high.
hopefully winning a D1 championship would be great, because D2 is awesome, but still we're only in the minor leagues of club lacrosse. So now that we're going D1, we're going to go to the major leagues and hopefully win that soon enough.
Given the team's recent success, those dreams don't seem unrealistic. In Chapel Hill, I'm Caleb Waters, reporting.
The team has some fall matches, but the official season is in the spring.
2 matches, 2 more wins for the volleyball team. On Friday, the Heels swept Boston College at home, and Sunday, after trailing 2-0, the Heels came back for a 3-2 win against Georgia Tech. Carolina is now 17-2 on the season. The swimming Heels had their first conference meet on Saturday against the Virginia Tech Hokies. The Carolina men were off to a great start, dominating the former ACC champs with an early sweep in the 100-yard breaststroke. On the women's side, Emma Nunn continued her early season success with 2 victories, including this one in the 200-yard butterfly. And UNC showed its depth with Jack Nyquist contributing a first-place victory in the 1-meter diving. Both teams took their first conference victories convincingly. Coming up, some final thoughts about what's next for Chancellor Carol Folt.
And the rest of the UNC community in light of the Wainstein report.
Don't forget to tune in to our sister shows, Carolina Week at 5 p.m. every Wednesday on Time Warner 24 or Campus Channel 34, and Carolina Connection at 8:30 every Saturday morning on WCHL 97.9 FM.
The great outside. My new mom and I have a lot in common. So shiny. We both love the outdoors. That's not a flower. And she knows a lot about wildlife. A labradoodle.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
We end tonight with some final thoughts about the Wainstein report. Elizabeth, what's your biggest takeaway?
There's no doubt about the impact this investigation has had on the athletics department. 5 ASPSA counselors had firsthand knowledge of these classes and in fact steered student athletes into taking them. Of course, it's important to notice that not all of the athletes in these classes were student athletes.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Jordan, your final thoughts?
I think that it's going to be a very long time before we get any substantial answers. I know that the report actually answered a few questions, but it also brought up many, many more. I think we're kind of in for the long haul. Susanna?
Lewis, what about you? Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's a cultural thing. I know we all love athletics, but academics have to come first. Until we change that, I don't think things will work out.
I definitely agree. And I think another important thing to remember is that none of our current athletes here now had anything to do with this scandal yet. It's going to be them that face the backlash.
Well, that does it for this edition of Sports Extra. Thanks for watching.
Good night.